and I'm chairman of Dorset Council's Licensing Committee. Before we start the meeting, I just want to go over a few ground rules. Obviously, this is a public meeting and it is streamed live on YouTube. Can you please keep background noise to a minimum, i.e. any mobile phone alerts or any alerts that you have on your computer, if you could keep them muted. When you are invited to speak to the committee, if you could please turn your cameras on and your microphones on, and once you've finished, if you could then turn the cameras and microphones off. We do have a chat bar. That chat bar is purely there just for anybody that has any technical issues. If you can't hear us, if it goes a bit glitchy, if you can put that in there, it's not monitored by any of the 3 councillors. Okay, if I could get my 2 fellow councillors to introduce themselves, please.
I'm Councillor Susan Cockin. I'm a Dorset councillor, also a Portland Town councillor. I'm representing Portland.
Councillor Kate Weller, Dorset Council, Weymouth Town Council, represent Wyke and Rodwell. Thank
you, councillors. And can I have a proposer for the chairman for this meeting, please?
Can I propose that you, Councillor Emma Parker, take the chair?
And I will second that proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Cocking. Okay, I'm just going to do a roll call to check that we've got everybody here that we should have in our meetings. I've introduced you to my fellow councillors, so I will now ask the council officers to introduce themselves. So if I can start with the clerk of the meeting, please.
Good morning, Chairman. My name is Denise Hunt and I work for Democratic Services.
Thank you, Denise. And obviously also we've got Roy Keepax is on, and he is the one that is monitoring our YouTube live session and also there for any technical difficulties. I will now go on to our legal representative.
Thank you. I'm Phil Crowther. I'm a senior solicitor at Dorset Council.
Thank you. And now the report author, that's our licensing team leader.
Hello, I'm Aileen Powell, and as you say, the licensing team leader for Dorset Council.
Morning, thank you. I would now ask all parties to introduce themselves that are in attendance, and I would like to start with the applicant.
Hi, my name's Craig. I'm the General Manager of Number 10.
Thank you, Mr. Horton. And do we have another representative with you as well?
Hi, it's Peter Ravenscroft, one of the directors of Number 10.
Good morning, thank you. I will now move on to environmental health.
Good morning, councillors. My name's Jane Williams. I'm team leader for environmental protection.
Morning, thank you. And I will now move on to the representative from the police.
Hi, John Bean here. I am representing the police on behalf of Gareth Goslin, who has made the representation to the council.
Thank you and good morning. Okay, so we have everybody on that was in the that we were expecting this morning, so I just need to go through a few formalities. Do we have any apologies?
No apologies, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any declarations of interest?
No, Chair.
No, Chairman.
Thank you. Do we have any urgent business?
No, Chairman, we don't.
Thank you very much. Okay, I will now ask our licensing team leader if she could outline the case before us today.
Thank you, Chair. This is a hearing for a temporary event notice. It will have the effect of extending the licence at Number 10 in Bridport for 2 nights when the usual terminal hour is 2 o'clock. This will change the closing hour to 4 o'clock on the 30th and 31st of October effectively, so it'll go longer into the next morning. This will cover the Friday night into the Saturday morning and the Saturday night into the Sunday morning. Whilst it would extend the times of the licence, it does not automatically attach any conditions that are on the licence to the extension. Only a subcommittee may do that at a hearing. I wanted to put this into some sort of context. In the past 12 months, we've actually processed 941 temporary event notices. And of those, the police have only objected to 3, not including this one, and EH have only objected to 4, not including this one. This is a 6th hearing for 10s this year, and it's the 3rd one relating to licensed premises in Bridport. After hearing from all the parties, the subcommittees have 3 options. You can allow the temporary event notice without conditions. You can allow the temporary event notice with the conditions from the licence. And as this is potentially to extend a licence, if you are taking this option, I would recommend you include all the conditions from the licence. The other option is to not permit the event to take place and to serve a counter notice. No modifications to the times or activities specified in the notice can be made now that we are at a hearing to decide it. Any negotiation for that should have concluded before the hearing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Aileen. Councillors, do you have any questions for Aileen at this time?
No, not this moment.
Councillor Weller, you're muted.
Sorry, not from me either. What a silly mistake after all these months.
It's all good. It's all good. No, thank you. What questions I had, Aileen, as always, you've covered in your introduction of the report.
Thank you, Chair.
So thank you very much. I'll go to Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft. Do you have any questions for Aileen at this time? No?
No, I don't at this time.
Okay, thank you. I will now move on to environmental health. Jane, do you have any questions for Aileen?
Not at this time, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I did see that Mr. Ravenscroft came in briefly there. Mr. Ravenscroft, do you have any questions?
No, sorry, I lost you for a second, so I wasn't sure what you'd asked, but I then worked it out, so it's fine. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. I will now go to John Bean. John, do you have any questions for Aileen at this time?
No, I have none at the moment, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Aileen. I will now move on to the applicant. And obviously, I've got Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft. Obviously, we've read all the information that we have in front of us with regards to the application for your TENS. So we'd just like you to add to that, if you may.
Excuse me. Sorry, I'm in the car. We're heading up to Manchester for a family thing this weekend, so apologies if there's a little bit of background noise.
Chairman, sorry to interrupt. Can I just check with Mr. Ravenscroft that he's not actually driving at the moment? I appreciate he's in a car, but
no, I believe he's not.
Sorry, where was I? Oh, more details, right? Yeah, so the 10 we've put in for this weekend is for the Halloween sort of event that we like to put on. We've done it for a number of years, not at number 10 actually, at Beach and Barnet. So we just sort of carried that on. In terms of the conditions on the licence, I'd have to double check because Craig put this 10 in because I'm away. But we were asked last time we did want to put on the 10 that we would follow the conditions on the licence. We always do anyway. It's not something we would ever think to do to suddenly start operating differently at 2 a.m. for 2 hours. But I'll just ask Craig to confirm whether he did remember to put that on or not. I don't know if it's on the original 10. Is that something you could answer, Craig?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware, it was on the application that I said we were going to follow the same rules as per our process licence.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, that's something that we would expect to do anyway. So
yeah, if I can just come in there, Mr. Ravenscroft. I know that Aileen's got her hand up, so I just want that be clarification from Aileen on that, if I may.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst they might put it on the form, it actually means nothing in terms of a temporary event notice. So a temporary event notice is a very light touch permission, and it won't automatically carry on. So whilst they may be making some sort of undertaking to do that, there's no way that it could be enforced or even prosecuted against if something were to go wrong.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Ravenscroft, if you.
No, that I understand. In terms of the two objections, I mean, we've got an ongoing issue with the environmental health firm and a noise complaint. I found out from the documentation for this actually that there was another one from 2018 that I didn't have any, I didn't know about. So when we had this complaint that's being dealt with, we were sort of proceeding like, oh, this is something new that we need to deal with. We are taking it seriously. We're trying to figure out how to sort of contain noise from the front of the building. In terms of the 10, we're more than happy. We would expect it to reduce the volume of any music from 2 anyway, right down. That would be sort of the normal thing we would do. We don't want to upset the neighbours, obviously. But yeah, we didn't know about the 2018 when we took over. We bought the business this year, so we didn't realise that, you know, this was sort of another thing, and there was apparently an ongoing investigation. That wasn't something we were aware of. I'm not saying that, you know, there's a particular defence. It's just that is, you know, it's not that we knew that there was something from 2018, we've ignored it and just sort of carried on. We took over number 10 this year, and we weren't aware of that. So when this came up, we were under the impression number 10's a music bar. We were operating it in effect, you know, the way it's been operated, live music, DJs, that sort of thing. We carried on like that. But we didn't know that, oh, there's actually a problem already in the pipeline that we should have been mindful of. We didn't know that there's a street opposite us that the sound seems to, aside from where people do live, that the sound seems to tunnel down. We've been taking readings down there. We're aware that does happen, and we are trying to deal with it. And we're trying to construct some, come up with some designs, some modifications to the front that we can do to try and contain the sound, and something we can do, because the biggest part of the problem with the noise is when the door opens. So we and then literally straight out into the street, and then the sound blasts straight down this side street. And I've stood up the side street several times, and I can hear that there is a stark difference when the door opens. So we're trying to figure out a way of remedying that. It's a listed building, so we've got to be cautious of what we can do. You know, it's a bit tricky, but maybe some kind of temporary structure. But obviously, that's not going to help this weekend. In terms of the objection from the police, I wasn't really sure what I don't really know what that is. So I did want to ask more of the police about why, particularly, they objected to us on this occasion. We try really hard to. I mean, you know, we do call the police sometimes. Because you know, if we've got a problem, we always want to call the police and talk to them. We don't sort of shy away from calling them, but at the same time, we've not had any sort of major problems. We've taken over a new place. It's got a bit of a history. We know that, and we're being quite strict with it, which in itself has created a little bit of conflict with some people who are used to coming to number 10 and it being running a certain way. It's now running a different way. So that, you know, we're trying to make it a respectable, fun, friendly music place, and that's what we will do. Yeah. So I'd just like to ask the police what specifically the concerns are. If we've done anything that I should know about. Yeah.
What will happen? What will happen is you will present your case. We will ask questions. The police will be able to ask you questions, and when the police have presented their case, you will then get your chance to ask the police those questions then.
Okay, all right. Okay. I'll leave that for now.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Horton, do you have anything that you would like to add?
No, Pete's covered it all at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions? For either Mr. Horton or Mr. Ravenscroft?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions.
Okay.
Well, quite a few, but I won't ask them all.
Okay.
Specifically, why is it 2 nights for Halloween when usually Halloween is only celebrated? Why is it being done under the guise of Halloween when for 2 nights rather than 1 night? Most people do 1 night rather than 2 nights, when you already know that there's a problem with your noise or music, and there is already an outstanding complaint.
So,
So that
with the, yeah, so with the Friday night one, that's there if we obviously want to extend a little bit. So if we're dead at 2 o'clock, we'll close at 2 o'clock. But it's just so we can serve out a little bit, but there will be background music only on that one. And then the Saturday night, we've got a DJ in. And then that obviously, again, depending how busy I depends if we close early or not.
Okay, that was going to be one of my other questions, was actually, is it going to be DJs or live music? So on the Friday night, it will be music-wise?
Yeah, so Friday night, we've got a band until about 11 o'clock. And then after that, it'll be through our main speakers. So we can control the volume on that one.
Band till 11 o'clock?
Yeah, so band are in until about 11.
Till what time on Friday?
So they start at, I think it's 9 o'clock, and then they finish about 11:30.
Yeah.
And then after that, it'd just be through our speakers. So it'd be our own background music.
Yeah, and then on the Saturday?
So on the Saturday, we've got a DJ book till 2, and then we can just do background music from there.
Okay. And is it a ticketed event?
And no, it's not ticketed, it's whoever turns up on the night.
Right, okay, so how will you control the numbers on that then? It's 60,
so we've
isn't
got,
it, including staff? So how many staff and performers will you have?
So we're going to have 2 door staff on, and then
Yeah.
there'll be 3 members of bar staff, and obviously the 2 door staff as well. And plus on the Saturday, we've got that DJ as well.
Yeah.
So the door staff will have clickers with them as well, so they can count how many people's going in and out of the building.
Yeah. So that's how you. So you'll have someone counting how many people going in and out of the building.
Yeah, one of the door staff stands at the front, and then they'll say they click people in and out of the building, and occasionally they'll just go around and double check their numbers to make sure it is right.
Okay. And will you allow re-entry into the building once people are left?
Yeah, as long as they're not too drunk or over drunk, we can let them back in, or they didn't cause trouble. But again, if it's at numbers, we won't let them back in.
Okay. Sorry, last question. What happens if one of your door staff falls sick that night with COVID related? Do you have a backup for the door staff?
Yeah, we've got a pool of door staff we can use if we need to.
You've already got replacement door staff.
If we haven't, obviously we'd have to close the door if we can't get any.
Right. So if you didn't have enough door staff, then you wouldn't be able to open.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's all for the moment, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cocking. Councillor Weller.
Thank you. I think most of my questions have been answered. I just wonder, what's the demographic? What's the age group roughly that you have in number 10?
Typically, it's kind of changing. Typically, I would say it's the 20 to 30 sort of age group. We do get the sort of the 18-year-olds. We don't get too many of the sort of younger crowd at the moment. We're very strict on ID, so they tend to go elsewhere now. I would say, yeah, at the moment we're sort of in the 20 to 30 age group, and quite a few older than that as well. Particularly for the music, that seems to be attracting the sort of 30, 40 groups, and some older. And then obviously as the night goes on, it's more sort of the younger folk that want to stay out later. But yeah, it's that sort of age group that we get.
Thanks. And the other thing, and I think the answer to this was implicit in what was being said, but you've just got the one entry door and exit door. There's just one
Yeah, it's got a door at the front, which is why we have a limit of 60. I believe that's the historical reason for that.
Yeah, and
yeah,
sorry, at no point I'm surprised that you. I mean, I understand you said it was a listed building, but I'm surprised that you don't have an inner door, because I've been on licensing for a long time, and that's one of the things that, you know, we've always discussed in the past, that an inner door will help with that noise escape when the outer door is closed. So I'm quite surprised that you don't have that.
Sorry,
you said there's something you could look into.
you.
You're not hearing me, are you? I would. Can you hear me now?
I connect.
No, I think
I've got you now. So you're talking about an inner door.
Yes. Yes.
So
You
an
don't.
inner door. That's not something that could be. It's not. You'd have to see. So there's like a porch way, and the door is recessed. So there wouldn't be anywhere to put a door behind that. So the only place we could put a second door, which would be the ideal solution, would be on the front of that porch. But that's the listed part of the building, so you wouldn't be able to add a door there. It's all basically all glass. So we wouldn't be able to put a door there. What we're looking at is either something that we can sort of erect around the door when we've got music on sort of later on. But that's it. I'm trying to sort of come up with some kind of structure that we can use for that. I don't know how exactly we can do it. Obviously, we need to talk to the council, because we'd have to put something on the pavement. But that's kind of that's the kind of solution I think we're going to want to do. We're looking at we're looking at some blinds for the window as well. We think that the front window's curved, so it's not just a flat window. It's like flat, and then it sort of curves around the sides into this porch. It's kind of all glass, so it's a bit. It's an odd sort of unique building. But, yeah, but that's the kind of thing we're looking at.
Okay. And I think Councillor Cocking's questions have answered the other things that I needed to know. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Weller. I've just got a couple of questions. It's regarding dispersal. How do you deal with dispersal of your customers?
Well, when we close at 2, we try our best to keep people quiet, obviously, and get them out quietly. I prefer, I mean, on nights like this, where we do later, there are certain benefits to it in terms of dispersal. So because we're not shutting at 2, and then we don't have to have everybody out sort of half an hour later, what we do is say, so probably on Friday we won't be serving that much past 2 anyway, because there just won't be any demand for it. But if Saturday's busy and successful, I imagine that the extra time we'll need will be sort of an hour, and then people have generally sort of had enough anyway. But the benefit is that they just drift away. So what you don't get is a 60 people or 50 people or whatever it is out in the street all in one hit. So if over that sort of say we decide 3 o'clock we're going to stop serving now, we would then be in a position where they would disperse over a slightly longer period, and thus you get less hassle, less noise, less groups of people stood around talking outside, which is obviously annoying for the neighbours, because what happens is, you know, they come out at 2, they've not necessarily had enough, and then they want to hang around. So we try and encourage them to clear off. You know, so that's it. In terms of dispersal, the 10, generally they actually help us solve that problem rather than create a problem. Although it is later, of course, which I understand, if they are noisy, would be irritating for the neighbours.
You touched on the point to say that on the Friday you don't really see much demand after 2 AM. So what would your reasons be wanting a 10 till 4 if there's no real demand there?
Well, we don't know what the demand's going to be. I mean, it's purely the reason we would normally do something like that is a business decision. It's just we're putting one in anyway, so why not ask for a little bit of extra time on the Friday? If it is busy, we can stay open for a little bit longer, and that's great. If it's not, then we won't. We're not going to sit there for the sake of it, but it means that we have the option on the Friday of being open for it's not no point in giving any other reason. That is the truth. It's purely like we want the opportunity longer of paying the fee to do the Saturday, which is the important one. The Friday we may as well see if we can try and stay open. It's something we've always done. I used to do it at beach as well. Never had an objection before, so it's not come up. Obviously, if it was we thought it would create a problem, we wouldn't have bothered with the Friday. But yeah, so that's the reason.
Okay. And with regards, if you're gonna be at your max of 60, am I right in thinking that you are only going to have 2 door staff?
We would have 2 door staff. Yeah, I mean that's
you wouldn't think of having more.
There's absolutely no need to have more than 2. I mean, 2 is a condition of the license at number 10 for 60. Yeah, it's not, on a really busy, on a really busy night like this Saturday. If the requirement on our license was 1 doorman, we would have 2 for this kind of event. So we would always choose to have the extra door staff on. But I mean, 1 on the door, and then another one, because we have a back section, another one supervising that. We will have on Saturday, I think, 2 personal license holders on duty as well. Most of my experienced staff are personal license holders. So in terms of security, we've got 2 staff. In terms of experience, we've got plenty of that. I think that is what we would do. Yeah.
Okay. And have you got an outside area?
At the back, in the rear, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions for you at the moment. Councillors, do you have any further questions?
I just wanted, sorry, Chair, just a clarification. Did you say that you've got an outside back area?
Yes.
But there's no door to it?
Oh yeah, there is a door to it, yeah.
All right, because I just thought Councillor Weller asked if there was just 1 door into the building.
Oh right, okay. Well, you can't exit the premises by that door, so the back area, it's all enclosed.
It's an enclosed courtyard, presumably.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the members of the public allowed into that courtyard?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Right. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Aileen, do you have any questions for either Mr. Horton or Mr. Ravenscroft at this time?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now go to Jane, Environmental Health. Jane, do you have any questions at this time for Mr. Horton or Mr. Ravenscroft?
I do, thank you, Chair. On a point of clarity, Craig, you mentioned that you would have a band on Friday night, but I don't think you included that in the numbers that the councillor was asking for. Can you advise me how many band members you will be expecting?
I can't remember off by heart how many it is, but we normally keep it to a max of 3 on the band members.
Okay, because they do need to be included.
Yeah, they will be included.
Overall
as well.
Numbers. That was that point.
Yeah.
My second question for you: what is your understanding of background, and how do you monitor it?
So we've got our own decibel meter on it, and obviously if I'm standing outside and it is really too clear for me to hear music up the street as well, I'll make sure it's turned down as well. So I try and stand up the street, make sure I can't hear the music.
And how often do you do that, Craig?
Ideally every hour I try and go out. If I can get out, I go out more. Depends obviously how busy we are.
Okay, and what decibel meter? What decibel level are you actually looking for? Is it A weighted and is it fast?
It's I can't remember what it is off by heart now, but I've got a rough average of what it normally is on when there's no music on.
Okay.
I'll try and keep no more than like 5 or 10 above that.
I'd
So
like
if
to
I can
see
keep it-
5. I wouldn't like to see 10.
No, no. It normally obviously it hits that 10 when obviously the door opens and that.
In that case, you should be making sure it's below the 5,
Yeah.
even with the door open, really, because that may well be having that significant impact. That's all my questions for the moment. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you. I will now go to John Bean. Do you have any questions for either Mr. Horton or Mr. Ravenscroft at this time?
No, Chair, I do not have any questions at this particular time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will now move on then to our responsible bodies that will have made representation. So I'm going to start with Jane from Environmental Health.
Thank you. I submitted a report which I believe you said you already reviewed and taken into consideration. I just want to reiterate the reason for my objection, which obviously Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft are very keen to have an understanding of. So the reason we Environmental Health has objected is our concerns over running events on 2 consecutive nights and until the very early hours of the morning onwards. The finishing on a Sunday that late, because it prevents residents from having undisturbed sleep in readiness for the working week. 4 o'clock is a real early morning for people that have got to go to work the following day. And of course, the clocks go back on Saturday. So they gain an extra hour, even though they may finish at 2, for example, there will be an extra hour in that period because of the clocks going back. I think I've said that the right way around. I always get very confused, I'm afraid.
It's definitely back.
Thank you. And more importantly, we've recently served a noise abatement notice for amplified music and speech. It's a recent service of notice due to the poor controls of music, and of course that reflects on management responsibility. And that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, do you have any questions for Jane?
I just had one. Mr. Ravenscroft said that there was a complaint or something in 2018, which you said he didn't know about.
That is correct. Unless he had asked to find out whether there were any complaints prior to purchasing the building, he wouldn't have known.
All right, so has he only recently purchased this?
Yes.
I believe he said he'd only purchased it this year, Councillor.
Oh,
he
right.
did say that he has purchased
I
it
have
this
had
year.
a bit trouble trying to hear him, so I'm like,
yes. So,
yeah, okay, so that's
Jane's very right in what she says, and unless the question was asked beforehand, has there ever been any complaints made either to Environmental Health or to licensing for that respect, then obviously they wouldn't know that unless they actually asked the question. So this one that come in is relevant obviously to the owners of the business now.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that. So the noise abatement order that's now, does that sit, is that on there for quite a while until it's completed, the complaint?
So the noise abatement notice is under the Environmental Protection Act 1990. Once it's served, it remains a valid notice. There is no end dates on notices of this description. However, I would say that if no breaches of that notice had happened in the next six to 12 months, we would look rather silly taking it into court because of the delay.
Okay. Right, that's fine. Thank you, Jane.
Councillor Weller?
I think that clarifies it. I just wanted to be sure that the current noise abatement notice is for the current ownership. So we're not talking about any historical previous ownership here, are we?
No, indeed.
Presumably and hopefully Mr. Ravenscroft is aware of this noise abatement notice.
It would have been served directly on him as the owner of the premises, and I believe Mr. Horton also got a copy of the notice, but I may be incorrect in that because it wasn't myself that served.
Right, so that covers that. And presumably you keep an eye on that and see that any recommendations are being taken forward. And you've just mentioned just now to Mr. Horton that 5 would be an acceptable noise level, not 5 to 10.
Indeed, there's a little bit more than I would like to explain to Mr. Horton at some point in the future, but it's not relevant to the temporary event notice. So I will close that conversation if I may at this time.
Yep, certainly, that's fine. Thank you very much indeed, Jane.
Thank you.
Jane, I just have a question. I just want to clarify the complaint that you had. I take it that was just on standard hours of the 2 a.m. finish. It wasn't on previous 10s or anything.
That is correct, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. And I had another question for you, and it is completely left because I thought of that one. So yeah, I might have to come back to you, Jane, because I really cannot. Oh, actually, yeah, it is. Have since obviously the complaint has come in, has anybody from environmental health gone out just to do a bit of a sound check at a certain time, or have you
Not
put
currently.
any equipment in to monitor any sound coming from there?
Not currently. Obviously, it's a fairly fresh notice. It was served on the 18th of October. We are aware that if there is continuing issues, and normally our complainant will come back to us and say they're not listening to us, and in that respect we would do efforts, as it were, to assess whether indeed that breach has happened, whether that's an in-person observation or the installation of noise monitoring equipment. It's a very similar investigation leading up to the notice as well as post-notice.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jane. Councillors, do you have any further questions?
No, I don't, thank you.
No, okay, thank you. I don't have any further questions at the moment, so I will go to Aileen. Aileen, do you have any questions for Jane?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. And I will now go to Mr. Ravenscroft and Mr. Horton. Do you have any questions for Jane?
Yeah, with the complaints, was that from like July time, is it roughly?
The complaint would have been investigated over a period of time. So it wouldn't have just been one incident, it would have been a period of time. This is what statutory nuisance is about. Statutory nuisance, if I may, is frequency, duration and severity enough to materially affect the way in which someone lives in their own home. So singular occurrences are rare to be a statutory nuisance. We have dealt with singular occurrences as a statutory nuisance, but they tend to be something like a 24 hours length or a whole weekend where there is no break. But we have got instances recorded and observed by officers where it is something that meets that criteria.
Yeah, because I know there was a DJ that obviously did refuse to turn his music down, which we've stopped coming in now.
Okay.
So we figured out roughly who it was that obviously the noise was too much on. So we said to him, no, you're not coming back in now.
You are very welcome, Craig, to supply me with dates for that particular person operating your premises, so I can see if it actually has an impact on the service of the abatement notice. But I suspect that it is one of many incidences that we use to summarise and believe that statutory nuisance was arising.
Yeah, I know there was 2 complaints. Obviously, I worked out roughly from when the letter was sent which weekend it was. And also roughly pinpointed it down to that DJ.
It may well have been just that weekend that prompted those complaints coming through to us, but we don't just use that as a singular incident. So we would have followed that through to obtain further data over the following weeks, and then obviously undertake a proper investigation by officers to bring about the conclusion of the service of abatement notice.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Any further questions? No? Okay. I'll go to John Bean. John, do you have any questions for Jane?
No, I have no questions for Jane. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Jane. Appreciate that. Okay. I will now move on. to John Bean. John, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Not particularly, Chair. You and your fellow members have read the objection submitted by Sergeant Goslin. As he has noted in that, I'm really here on his behest as he has another hearing this morning to answer any queries or anything that may come up which requires clarification from his objection or any other matter under the TENS procedure or the Licensing Act.
Okay, thank you, John. As you said, and as we pointed out, we've read. I've read everything that Sergeant Gosling is put in writing to us. I don't have any immediate questions or any points of clarification at the moment. Councillors, do either of you have any questions or points of clarification?
No, Chair. It's a very comprehensive report, and it's answered everything for me at the moment.
Me too, Chair.
Okay, thank you, councillors. I will now go on to Aileen. Aileen, do you have any questions for John?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I will now go to the applicants, Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft. Is there any questions that you have for Mr. John Bean? Do we have any?
No, I haven't got any questions at the moment.
You haven't. Does Mr. Ravenscroft have any questions? This would be your only. This would be sort of like your only chance to question the representation that the police have made. Once this section of the meeting is done, I am going to go into a summing up case. So if there's any questions that you really do want answering from the officer, then this is the time to ask them. But if you're happy that the report that we have in front of us is as it is and you've got no questions, that's absolutely fine.
Yeah, because we've covered obviously door staff and everything like that already. Okay. So yeah, it's all been covered as far as I'm aware.
Okay. Mr. Ravenscroft? Okay, I am going to move on. Okay.
I think it's only fair to point out. I know you've given Mr. Ravenscroft the opportunity of speaking, but he did say earlier on that he did want to ask the police some questions about why they put the objection in.
Yeah, but I see that he's there, but he's not answering. I don't really know what more I can do. What I will do is I will move on to the summing up, and if obviously Mr. Ravenscroft does come back in, then I will give him the opportunity to ask the question. But obviously, if he's not there, it's not ideal.
Is Mr. Horton aware of what questions Mr. Ravenscroft was anxious to ask? He hasn't mentioned.
No, I was going to say I don't think he is, because I think he would have mentioned them. So
no, nothing's been passed on to me. What he wants to ask about it.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, Jane from Environmental Health. Do you have any questions for John?
No, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
I think, Chairman, it's Denise. I can just see from the participants that Mr. Ravenscroft has had to leave the meeting, so I don't know whether he's been having a connection problem, and we'll try and come back in. But he's just left.
I have seen that he has just gone off my screen, and I see that he is now waiting to be admitted back in.
Yeah, I'll admit him.
Okay.
He's back in now.
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Ravenscroft. It was to ask if you've got any questions for Mr. John Bean regarding the submission that they've
when I
made.
read the police report, it talks a lot about perhaps changing the licence and so on, which is something we could look at, things like that. So I don't think now's the right time for us to do that. I didn't see any specific event or any particular reason, unless I missed something. I just wanted to sort of look at particularly why this has been objected by the police.
Can I just? Am I the only one having problems hearing?
No, I'm having real problems hearing,
Hello?
Chair.
Okay. Mr. Ravenscroft, I think the question you were asking was, you wanted a reason as to why the police have objected to the 10s.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what he did try and say. I can just make out what he said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, is that something that you're able to answer?
Yes, quite simply, I think, Chair. As was mentioned by Aileen at the commencement of the hearing, the only way that conditions can be attached to a temporary event notice is through a hearing. That is the only way that they can be attached to have enforcement, to be allowed to be used if events take the wrong course of action. And gentlemen's agreements in the past have not been solid enough to facilitate that. So that is essentially the main reason for the objection. It is to, if your committee are minded to grant this, Sergeant Goslin would wish to see all of the conditions attaching to the licence in its full format attached to this 10. So that is the main reason for the objection. In the long term, he would wish, as you've seen through the objection notice, to have within the licence itself events such as this included, so we don't have to come before you every time to have these added on to temporary event notice. And these something, hopefully, which the management of the premises will see as a long-term solution, in that we can look then to include things such as Halloween, and shall I say Valentine's as another example, but which then would have conditions attached to it within the full premises licence itself. And I hope that answers the question as best as I can.
It does. It answers it very, very well for me. Thank you. Mr. Ravenscroft, are you happy with that answer as to why it's been brought to us?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. I mean, I get that.
Oh, sorry, you're breaking up again. I can't hear you.
We're not held to a gentleman's agreement.
If Mr. Ravenscroft switches off his camera.
Yeah. I don't think you can hear us.
We're happy with the current terms, so yes, we're happy with that, and that's the only reason. That's fine. I was really worried when the police objected that there was an incident or something we didn't know about. We couldn't see a reason for it.
Yeah, they say merely around the conditions. Obviously, we can apply the conditions. So if we were minded to grant, then obviously we can carry all the conditions from your license. And I think there was something there that they would probably encourage you to have, as opposed to keep putting in for temporary event notices.
I'm not sure whether Mr. Ravenscroft heard any of that, but hopefully he did. Yes, yes, Mr. Horton can convey that to him, can't he?
Yes. Could you just clarify that you did hear that, Mr. Horton?
Yeah, I did hear that bit.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Hello.
Hi. Yeah, I did. I think I got most of that. I mean, and we're happy with all of that, and we would, hope that the committee grant the license and we can have those conditions on there. In terms of the noise, obviously we can monitor that, and actually our internal CCTV has sound, so that could be checked on retrospectively as well by environmental health. So that's something that could be done in addition to other checks that are being done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Does anybody else have any more questions for John Bean?
No. Thank you.
Okay. So now I am going to give everybody the opportunity to sum up. Please ensure that you feel as though we've heard everything that we need to hear today for us to make our decision. I don't want anybody to go away from here and feel as though you didn't have a fair hearing and that there was questions that you wanted to ask us or clarifications you wanted to give us or any points you wanted us to take on board to make our decision. I don't want you to go away from here feeling that you haven't had that opportunity. So this will be your case for summing up, and I am going to work backwards in my summing up as always do. So I will start with Mr. John Bean. John, have you got any summing up? If you've got nothing to add, that's absolutely fine as well.
No, Chair, I've got nothing to add to what has been mentioned already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for joining us this morning. I will now go to Jane from Environmental Health. Jane, have you got anything you'd like to add in summing up? Jane is there because I can see that she's on the screen. Okay, I'll come back to Jane after I've gone to Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft. Is there anything else that you would like to add in summing up? Oh, bear with me because I do have Jane on. Jane, have you got anything you'd like to add and for summing up?
Nothing to add, thank you, Chair. I had a problem with my computer.
Okay,
sorry.
that's fine. But thank you for joining us this morning. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Horton and Mr. Ravenscroft, do you have anything you would like to add and your
Only that from the police perspective, we're happy to have the conditions of the licence carried on for the temporary events notice. And from the environmental health perspective, we're happy to be held to account, and we're happy to have monitored and have the recordings from inside the building checked, and I think obviously we want to work with them to make sure we understand the rules. I know Craig does want to talk to them about his monitoring equipment so that we can understand properly how to use it. That's it from my perspective.
Okay, well, thank you, and thanks for your time this morning and joining us, and have a safe journey. Mr. Horton, is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, there's nothing else I want to add.
No, okay, thank you. I will now move on to our licensing team leader, Aileen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to make 2 points. One, I'd just like to remind you that it's Mr. Horton who is the notice giver, and therefore he will be the person responsible for the event. He would be the person that we would have to prosecute should anything go wrong. Hopefully it wouldn't. And just to remind you that no amendments can be made to either the times or the days for this temporary event notice. It either is as served or not at all.
Yeah,
thank you.
Okay, thank you for your clarification, Aileen. Appreciate that. Okay, I will now ask Phil, our legal representative, if we have addressed all relevant points.
Chairman, yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, has everybody had their say?
Yes.
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Okay, in that case, I will conclude this part of the meeting. We will now go into exempt business to discuss our decision. In our decision making, we will have Democratic Service Officer with us, and we also will have our legal representative should we need any legal areas covering on that. Your decision notice will come out. I believe Aileen will probably email those out. Will you be emailing those out, Aileen?
Yes, Chair, we will. As soon as they've been signed off, we will.
Yeah. So as soon as we made our decision, that might be later today. It could be tomorrow. And I do have to say this, but anybody that is not happy with the decision we made, you do have the right to appeal 1 days to Weymouth Magistrates Court, but obviously it'd be a bit tricky with it being so close. But you do have that right to appeal should you not be happy with the decision that we've made. Councillors.
Chair, sorry, can I just, before you say that, whilst there is a right to appeal, obviously it won't actually apply in this case because they can't apply more with less than 5 working days before the event.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Right, can I have a vote that we go into closed session, please, councillors? Are you all in agreement that we go into a closed session?
In agreement, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you everybody for attending. Appreciate your time, and I will draw this meeting to a close. Thank you.
Thank you.